to make a change. And I explained this to her, but yeah, there's no, the planning board can't make that concession. They would have to go to the ZBA to get a variance.
Okay.
But yeah, you guys, the planning board itself doesn't
Right.
have the authority
Once
to
we
approve
hear
anything.
the
that,
plan, I might ask you to expand
yeah,
on that one.
yeah, sure.
Teresa, you're going to grab the attendance.
Okay. And then this one, obviously, that is only.
Yeah, that was a specific
They've got
question.
a sheet
from
to sign in.
Potentially, if that's what
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yep,
we'll find out tonight.
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Quorum.
It's an annual statewide convening, so it'll be commissioners from various different regions, all 9.
Please be sure to sign in and sign in legibly so that we can record that you were here. Thank you. No Joanna tonight.
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Hi, Gary.
She was up every 2 hours last night giving Jordan insulin, so she's, oh, I'm sorry. I should not have said anything because we're live. We're live, I apologize. Sorry, Jordan.
5 minutes, though. I think it just started off.
I'm taking some Sue and Ed.
Okay.
Did you want to? You're more than welcome to.
All kinds of stuff.
All sorts of stuff.
Okay. So everybody knows that we're live, but the meeting's not going to start for another 5 minutes. Thank you.
Is it for you?
Thank you, ma'am.
Joe. I know, I was looking for you guys before I left.
Thank you.
But there was way more than
Yeah, I wanted to just like get the whole view of it, but. Oh, thanks. Did you guys get any good information out of the stuff in there?
I got some information from there.
Oh, okay.
That's really, most of it was a review of planning board basics. And
Yeah.
when I got the email today, review, I'm like, just having more hot button topic workshops would be, for me, a little better than
Yeah. Oops, sorry. Mentioned the OSI conference in the spring.
right.
They have way more options and different tracks.
Right. Oh, we've done that because I've done multiples,
Yeah.
but I had just kind of hadn't been to a planning board one, but I've been to ZBA, so I'm like, planning board. There's so much going on here, but
At least you gave your input that way.
I did, and it just wanted to get it packed and noisy. How many times did they rearrange the house?
I know.
But I really liked the second female that didn't use the PowerPoint. but talked off her notes and put in feedback. She was really good, and she's the one that got most of the information.
Yeah, she has some topics.
Right, yeah, so that was informative and found it at least more interesting and lively. The other one was like, all right, wow, all these questions were running late. And I'm thinking,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the bummer about, going over is you don't have as much information. Or there's so many informations in this room.
right.
Like, you need to have those case studies.
Exactly, and maybe even almost do a, finish your questions and maybe work around
Yeah.
things and copy.
Yeah, sometimes I do like, felt like, those parts, questions, and then you ask them,
Right.
go through them at the end. Would have been a good thing for them to do.
How are you, Buzz?
Sorry.
Well, one meeting each.
Just so you know, we are live right now. We're just waiting for the 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock hour.
How are you?
Good, and you?
Good, thanks.
How was your management? No dirt,
by the way.
Can't wait until you go. I didn't think it was 30 years.
All right, I'd like to call a meeting of the Nottingham, New Hampshire Planning Board, October 9th, 2019 meeting to order. I'll start on my far right and have the board introduce themselves.
Robert Davies, alternate.
Teresa Bascom.
Edward Veal.
Susan Mooney.
Gary Anderson. Joe Clough.
Stephanie Casella, SRPC.
And even though there will likely be no votes tonight, I'd like to recognize Mr. Davies is seated and voting for Mr. Grotenice tonight. So we'll tackle the agenda in order. It's not too lengthy tonight. The first item on the agenda, as such, is a conceptual hearing for a 4-lot line adjustment conceptual applications from Franklin Associates LLC to adjust the common boundary lines of map 70 lot 25, owned by Kevin Bassett, 70-25 LLC, with that of map 68 lot 5, owned by Leslie and Barbara Thompson, map 68 lot 6, owned by Michael Doherty Revocable Trust, map 70 lot 11, owned by Marco and Michelle LaFabe, and map 70 lot 13, owned by Matthew and Sinead Eaton. So if I nail it and I kill it, I'm sorry. If anybody would like to come up that's speaking for the applicant tonight to have this discussion, let's give us a quick summary, I welcome that.
Kevin Bassett, owner of Rockland Drive. Just a quick introduction. I was here first quarter. I was here prior to purchasing the land. I was interested in what the board was interested or would be in lot line adjustments if I was to purchase that. The general feedback was that's a good thing. It's a good thing for the owner. It's a good thing for the town. And that's why we're here tonight. The second thing I asked about was large lot subdivisions. I'm not planning on doing that anytime soon. The only thing I plan to do is put on a barn to store a boat and a tractor, harvest some wood. And on that topic, a little bit aside from this topic, I did go in front of the Board of Selectmen, told them I would start to harvest some of the wood along the side of the road. We all know about the dirt road topics that are in town. So I at least started that effort to try to widen the road in a tree kind of format, and especially in the small areas, neck areas, narrow areas. So that's where I'm at today, and that's why we're here.
All right. And before we go too far, I'll just have you, if you can, try to grab that mic and move it a little bit closer to you, just in case. Just in case.
You just stay here. Up here.
So I apologize, I don't think I was here for that prior meeting. I think I was out. It was probably, you probably came in when I was, when we were having my daughter, so I apologize. So if I ask some questions that you've already answered back then, please be patient.
Yep. My name is Jim Franklin. I'm the land surveyor that's assisting these families with these lot line adjustment. The owners are here tonight. I don't need a letter of authorization from them. What we're got a little display board there. Two of the main things that we're concerned with is the need for a full perimeter survey of Kevin's property, which is lot 25. This is lot 25 here. It's about 55 acres, give or take, because it hasn't been surveyed. And whether or not the board would feel that it's necessary to do a full perimeter survey in light of the fact that we're only transferring these red areas out of his lot. That's one thing that we're concerned with. The other thing is the status of these lots. These lots were all created by one subdivision plan, 1965, I believe. I have a copy of it with me. And on that plan, they show this easement, this dashed line here. I believe you have a copy of this. Yep. They show this dashed line here, 33 feet from and parallel with the lot lines that were created by that subdivision plan. To the best of my knowledge, that is not being used specifically for access. Or I can't say specifically, but it's really not the only point of access for all these lots. As you can see, these dashed lines that run through the property, I copied from the aerials and from the town's tax map. In my opinion, this road has never been deeded to the town. It's a private easement on land that Kevin owns. And as such, it's my opinion, we can convey any portion of these red process areas, even though they are encumbered by this potential easement. Since that's a private way, I need some guidance from the board about that. And I realize that it may be a matter for the selectmen, but at least I would like to get the board's opinion as to, you know, how we should proceed with that.
So my first question is, explain again what the purpose of what's going to be accomplished by the lot line adjustments.
would those be further back under lot 25 or abandoned?
They're not used. As you go out there, for these lots, I don't believe these are being used, at least specifically. The terrain just doesn't permit it. And so they have various driveways that get into these lots. Part of the survey work that we have to do is to show where these lots have access.
Okay, but so right now, though, there's a deeded easement, and would that be dissolved, or as part of this process?
Well, today with the deeds are almost all the same. And
lots. How are those accessed? Hill. Yeah, so something.
So where do they come in from?
Pardon? During the survey, during the course of the survey. We have not done any field work out there at all. I can't answer that specifically. All I can do is the tax map and the Google Earth.
So are the people for lot 5 and 6
5 and
here?
6.
Yeah,
How do you get to your house?
Which lot are you referring to?
5 and 6.
I don't know. We're 11, 13. I'm lot 11.
5 and 6.
All right, how do you get to your house?
There's a spur coming off of Lamprey Drive, coming back to both our homes. I'm 6, he's
So, question I have is regarding 5 and 6. That spur, would I be correct in assuming that that would remain the
Yeah.
way it is, even with the change of the property, if it
Exactly.
were, okay.
Is that,
None of the landowners intend, right, if you thought changing, widening the Avenue Road with this lot line adjustment. I think we all envision continuing to use the same access points that we use right now. Now, I can speak to lot 11. If you look at lot 11, Lot 11 was split off from Lot 12. And you can see where Lamprey Road
That shows.
was running across
Yeah.
12 to 11, and then it terminates right after that. Well, Lot 11 doesn't even use Lamprey Road along the waterfront. I access my lot through Indian Run.
That looks like the most.
So
That's
right
spur.
next to lot 10. So Lamprey Road actually doesn't even, it doesn't exist. There's no spurs or anything. Lot 12 is the Zyla property, and there's a little leg that comes off of that accesses her house, and then 2 other houses along the waterfront to the left side. What really happens with that whole Lamprey Road is it gets close to the water, it turns into, I believe, either 3 or 4 fingers that just go into driveways. But there's nothing that goes off to the left as it relates to lot 12 and lot 11. Because 11 accesses it from Indian Run.
Now,
Okay.
on this, on this map,
There's no plan for any change in my access.
on this, it doesn't it does.
that's done? Have you moved on?
Goes off of this one.
Okay,
And if you can, I'll have you all,
okay.
we're recorded, we're on the camera too for public, just to have you come up to the,
A few this to
the
pass
desk.
around. This is a copy from the engineer that did the site work for me, and I printed that site plan, and then I hand drew the access point off of Indian Run. So that shows how I access my lot.
And your name, sir? Just so.
Mark Lefebvre,
All right, thank
lot
you.
11.
Would we be able to hang on to this for the folder? Or do you need this back?
Well, I'm not sure if I have a copy.
Okay. So then we'll hand it back to
Well,
you
we
again.
can make that happen.
I can take a photo of it and send it to
Yeah.
Joanne. So I guess obviously, this, the conceptual, so again, this is kind of very, very high level and informal. So you already know that that's some that, those are some of the questions that would come up is figuring out that and access, because obviously, with some of these lots, it looks like the easement would go away. Like there's a lot in the middle, like, so example, like 11 and 13, number 12 is in the middle there. So, you know, how are they still going to access their property? And then with 5 and 6 on the right,
Right, so
you know,
what's
showing the
not
access on
on
that.
this map or what's on your copy is that Lamprey right here splits and comes down, and that all these houses access from. That's what's not on the map.
Okay, so there's another access that just,
Right, this is Lamprey, and this is, the whole thing was supposed to be Lamprey.
but there's a diagonal somewhere in there that's,
Correct. Further goes this way, which is how 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, all access.
so I can get to our,
I don't need it.
are you sure? Oh.
Can I just add one little thing? So sometimes those roads that they're never actually built are referred to as paper roads. Also, I addressed it number 3 on my memo. And I haven't read the deed, so I don't know the exact language, but from what I just read, it sounded like a general process across the land. So it'd be helpful to look at the plan and you would be able to show how each of those landowners is accessing the parcel. Because right now, that non-existing road is all of those lots are accessed. So, yeah, so what we want is that survey, and on that new plan, if this all is to go through, you just show that access and update any deed or easement language that is available.
Town survey plan is the way it is right now. And try to fork it. That's probably kind of problematic. You have a road that forks and goes 2 different directions. Difficult for. So yeah, so if you want to go through, sorry, so we did that as RBC. Doing our applications. Through yours.
So I had some previous correspondence with Mrs. Alger, and she asked some questions, so that's where this memo was derived from. The first question she asked was, what setbacks and lot conformity is she subject to after land is added? And I explained to her, once your lot changes, it no longer is a non-conforming lot. So once you change those lines, you're subject to all current zoning regulations, including setbacks, minimum acreage, and then the frontage on class 5 or better road. Correct. So currently, applicants go to the ZBA for a variance on that. And then she asked about the paper road, which is the road that runs along the perimeter of all the lots. And I explained exactly what I just said, that it can be dissolved. You just have to be able to show the new access or the current access that everybody is using on that new plan. and then to update any language that may reflect a different access. So you just need to be able to update the plan and show in the current language that those lots are accessible.
Lot 7025 have, map 7025, does that have any residences on it currently? That's totally at the moment. Yep, okay, so, normally with, subdivision, they like to see at least one buildable lot on that to show that, somewhere on here there's 30,000 square feet, two house, so we know we're not, lot that can't be built on. That amount of land, probably. So hopefully it'll be approved in one area. The discussion about whether you have to do the whole boundary, that's been a waiver request before, that's been granted. Topography. It's up to you, I would think. Depending on anyway, it makes sense. That is a waiver request we've seen before. We'll get plans if we kind of answered your question on that as well as we can.
One question back on the, said that the DBA, they are justified in the DBA for access to these lots.
So just for
Because
the,
there's not a class 5, so we're not creating any new lots. They're private lots.
correct.
So why would we need to go to the DBA for access to the existing lot structure?
Like, what you have to do with the CBA, if you want to do anything in these lots. Because you want to get past the zoning.
Which I'm sure the landowners are already doing because they're, or I'm sorry, existing non-conforming lots.
So if you're asking the planning board to approve from the zoning ordinance. So this is not an uncommon thing in Nottingham, that there are a lot of private roads that don't meet the definition of frontage under the town zoning ordinance. So any of those lots on private roads have to go to the zoning board if they're going to do anything. Now, that anything might be to build something for a building permit, or it might be to request a lot line adjustment or a subdivision application. So that's your anything to do anything.
Okay, we also have to do that if what I want to buy is 4 foot meter and leave the zoning thing is 2 acres, I don't want 2 acres. So I have to do the same thing?
Yes,
Because then to make it a non-conforming
Right.
lot.
because it's already non-conforming, and if you're not making it conforming, you have to go to the ZBA.
But right now, it's a pre-existing non-conforming, so, but we would be bringing it into, by taking action on it, we would be bringing it into current zoning, because it would change at the
Modified.
lot of record date,
Right.
and it would be, so therefore, it would be making it a current non-conforming lot, so we would have, part of this process, a step would be ZBA to get some variances as a part of the lot line adjustment process. And speaking with, that was Jen from, also from Stratford Regional Planning Commission, another portion of our staff that's reviewing plans, applications and such for us and providing technical assistance. That's who that was, in case, because she's not up here tonight.
Anything here, so you are.
I also work at Stratford Regional Planning. We're contracted to provide staff support to the planning board here.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Your name is Jen?
Jen.
So if we did this lot line adjustment, we went to the zoning board variance for it, doesn't mean we have to change anything that we already have.
Correct.
If we decide to do anything new, it would have to meet the current zoning setbacks and. Fine.
All right, so I'm confused now, because I thought you just said unless it's going to be a conforming lot, it needs to be approved by the zoning board. So it's already not a conforming lot, and once we buy the additional property, it will still not be a conforming lot.
Correct.
So does that by definition have to be approved by the zoning board, whether we build something on it or not?
Yes.
Because you're doing that something.
Because I thought, from what I heard, the answer here was that, no, you don't.
No,
Well, I have a question.
Yep.
I know the Regional Planning Commission has a point of view on these things, but does the town's attorney have the same point of view legally?
It's in
And
our,
I think that's an important part here,
it's in our regulation here that
that
any non-conforming use existing on the effective date of these regulations may be continued indefinitely, provided that such use shall not be.
hold on, excuse me, but, hold on, please. She's trying to explain something from the zoning.
and I think this is it'll partially answer your question. And I'll make sure to get to your question, back to your question, yeah.
Any non-conforming use existing on the effective date of these regulations may be continued indefinitely, provided that such use shall not be A, expanded, enlarged, extended, or moved to any other portion of the lot, so you're expanding, changed to another non-conforming use, or reestablished if such use has been discontinued for a period of 12 months, and then restored, blah, blah. But the first two, expanded or enlarged, changed to another conforming use, would go along with what you're doing.
Okay.
So it's saying there that it shall not be. You can continue with what you have, but you can't add to or modify or
We need to
anything.
go to the ZBA if we want to have a lot line adjustment, period.
Period.
And now, if we apply for a lot line adjustment, do we need to bring the existing lots of record up to the town's minimum lot size?
That would be part of the variance request, is that
To
you're,
not bring it up to that?
Correct.
yeah.
Okay.
So generally, the argument on that is you're making them more conforming, but they're still non-conforming.
Right, you would be
Here.
stating, this is what we are doing, we're increasing it from this to that,
Yeah.
just like you're showing us tonight.
Yeah, so it's obviously it's a multi-step process, partially just because of how old some of this is in existence, and obviously what was planned originally and what was actually put in place, and a lot of just kind of historic things occurring. So to kind of just get it all clean and up to date, you'd have a few steps, obviously figuring out where the road is and the real access is, and if there are paper roads, going through the steps that are outlined, which I'll give you this afterwards, 'cause that's gonna be one of the big questions. And then if there's deed stuff that needs to be cleaned up, that'd be part of the process, would be, or part of the conditions. And then,
And would it be necessary to go to the ZBA, make an application regarding the road? We have to say, okay, we want to make an application to the ZBA to increase the lot that is not on a class 5. So we want their permission to increase the size of the lot that's not on a class 5, waiving that class 5 requirement.
yeah, I think that would be part of one of the sections that you're asking for relief from.
Okay, so that's similar to what we did for retail trucks.
And I'm,
Create those lots on a private road. Yeah.
and I'm sorry, sir, in the back, your name?
My name is Les Thompson, I'm on lot 5.
And with all that kind of discussion that occurred, did that kind of answer your question, or?
No, that's my issue, is that I felt like I asked it and then it was never answered. But perhaps it's been answered now. Because I felt like in one case it was, well, if we don't put a structure on this land that we're purchasing, then it won't need a variance, or an exemption, or whatever your terminology is. But then I heard, well, because it's non-conforming, you still need that. So I felt like I was getting two separate answers. When one answer being, no, you don't have to get that if you build something, if you're not going to build anything on it. But we also heard, well, if it's non-conforming, which they're not going to be, then you still need it. So it seems to me the answer is on both cases, whether you're building anything or not building anything, we need this approval.
Right.
Correct.
Is that correct?
So
I don't like
if you,
doing something different.
if you were leaving it as is and weren't planning any lot line adjustment, anything like that, and weren't planning on building it, you would have no reason to go to ZBA because you're not doing anything with it. But if you were,
But I think the question was, we're buying this, and if we don't build something on it, do we need a variance?
the,
Do we need approval? And I thought the answer to that was no, you don't.
for the lot line adjustment, it would fall into
Okay,
ZBA, yeah.
That's what I thought was being asked.
Yeah.
Was with this lot line adjustment, and I don't build anything, will I still need approval? Yes, that's the answer, is that correct?
Correct.
Right.
Right, so then I have another question that goes back to the roads in terms of what 38 Lamprey Drive is, in terms of that little spur off of Lamprey. The address is 38 Lamprey Drive, so I assume it's part of Lamprey. Is that currently it's an easement. I don't care if it's an easement or if I own half, the other property owner owns half. I just don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize access to my home. I think probably everybody feels that way about it. But if it remains an easement, and we're adding on to our property, can we leapfrog that easement and buy property on the other side of that easement and still be connected to our property?
I see what you're saying. So basically, if you left the easement in place, so basically, if the road stays in place and you bought the land across the road,
Yes.
would that be considered part of your parcel? Like for the same tax map purposes?
I want it to be a continuation and an extension, but there's this easement that bisects us. So does that change it if there's an easement that bisects my property?
I would have to double check on that one. I mean, it would fall into like, you don't have, in general, you wouldn't have contiguous area. So for like a lot envelope example, if you have an easement or something run through the middle of that lot, that generally means you don't necessarily have a contiguous area because it's bisected. But each case is a little bit different depending on what the easement
So another way of
is.
asking is, must we buy that road in order to get the lot line extension? Because that road otherwise would block, you'd have to jump that road. So,
I think it's not fair to pose that question to the planning board, because that's why I suggested everyone have their own attorney. The planning board cannot give you legal advice on these things. And so if you say, well, can I do this or can I do that? All they can do is give you answers in regard to the subdivision and zoning regulations.
Yeah, so, I mean, that would be part of, unfortunately, on a conceptual, it is very high level and kind of generic, which it's meant to be, because there's no plan, so it's all non-binding and everything, so what we can legally discuss is kind of very limited to, at this level of a plan. But that would be one of the things we're looking at, is access for lots and things like that, because.
no, I realize that everything is, I'm not expecting anything to be binding, but
Yep.
I'd like to know what your frame of mind is at the moment. So, yes, I understand there's more details down the road, but since I know nothing, I'm just trying to know a little bit.
Right. Yeah, and that, I mean, it's a good question. If there's a right-of-way that goes through your property and you're buying land on the opposite side, but you say you didn't buy the right-of-way, and that would be it'd be an interesting topic. And some of this, we'd have to probably get legal review for ourselves. You know, we have a, legal purposes too, that we send stuff through for questions to make sure that we're acting accordingly and that we are interpreting as much as possible in the best framework.
Okay. Thank you.
And sir, since I butchered that first name, what is that correct?
Shawnette,
Shawnette? Thank you.
Gaelic, Irish.
I knew it was, I know Saoirse, but I don't know that. Did the board have any other questions, concerns at this point? No. Did you think Mr. Bassett or?
So the procedure then becomes what, should I ask Jim, or?
The procedure from this
what would be
point
our next step?
would be, you could do, be a formal application for either a design review, which is the next stage, which then does become somewhat binding, and
That comes to you, or?
it would be to us, and then also to the ZBA, for variances that would be most likely required at this point. So you can kind of do those concurrently in a way, you know, you can put the application for ZBA, or you can start the design review, get some more opinion first before going to ZBA to see if, you know, if we have anything, any changes based on a better plan.
Ed,
Yeah.
is each lot is going to have to go before the ZBA on its own, correct?
Right.
Yes.
And once they've done that, then the lot line adjustment can be done as a single proposal.
Yep.
So it really isn't concurrent. Really, the ZBA thing should come first, because there's several people involved in that.
Correct, I mean, so we could still do, you know, a design review is optional, it's not required, but you can still do a design review first. So a design review, so right now we're conceptual, so obviously it's non-engineered plans, and that the state requires that they can't be engineered. So it's non-engineered plans, it's very high level, a lot of times they're just pencil drawings. The next, a full application would then have more of an engineered plan, then you would have surveyed items and things like that, so you really get more of an idea of what really is existing on the site.
And what the changes will be.
And what changes will be, yep. You know, more maybe to more of the lot size, you know, changes, and how much is being adjusted. And then from there, you know, an application to the ZBA could be warranted, and then an application to the planning board for the, you know, a formal application. Anybody else in the audience for tonight? No? All right, well, I thank you all for being here tonight and for coming and for asking your questions.
You're doing this?
It's being recorded as well, so there's a lot of back and forth.
Cover it.
Yeah.
Everybody signed in, correct?
You said frontage on a private road, last.
All right. So the next item on the agenda is draft zoning amendments. These were some things we had asked Ms. Casella to put together, and she handed out tonight. Do you want to go over kind of quickly what these ones were?
Sure.
Jen?
I'm sorry.
Thanks.
So the first one I'm gonna go over is, it's kind of excerpts from the current zoning amendment. It says Article 1 preamble at the top. Looks like this, what I have notes.
Preamble?
Yes. So this is my first run through of reformatting the current zoning amendment. It doesn't include any changes to land use, just simply cleaning up the document itself. And I just took sample pages of stuff that I tried to get a little bit of everything that's been happening, because I didn't want to print out the entire 60-page document. So one thing I wanted to mention was I haven't moved any definitions yet. They're in 3 different spots, one of which is the conservation overlay, I think.
What are we looking at right now, Steph?
It says Article 1 preamble at the top.
Which is right, you have it on that pile.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it was the Aquifer Protection District that I was referring to with the definitions. So I haven't moved any yet. I kind of wanted to get your feedback as far as what you wanted to see for a glossary or a definitions appendix. But I did go through and make them more consistent in their formatting. So yeah, the basic goal for this run through was just to fix any errors. So if you flip to page 3, you can see the red strike through is what was removed, and then the red underline is what was added. So exchanged grandfathered for pre-existing. That happens in a couple other places. And then you'll notice under the headings 3, 4, and 5, those are all red underlined because we had 2 section C2 headings. So we fixed that, ended up 3, 4, and 5, and then it looked to me like there was a missing heading for accessory dwelling units, so I went ahead and put that in there. And then everything else kind of fell into place below that.
So it's pulling accessory dwelling units out of its nebulous space where it resides now and putting it into an actual
Yes.
place where it belongs.
Yep. And then making it consistent with the rest of the formatting, I changed the lettering to numbers, which is just how we did the rest of the document. On page 11, you can see that it looked like authority was maybe supposed to be its own heading, so I went ahead and moved that down. Also making it consistent with the other sections of the ordinance. Moving on to 43, this is a definitions section. I took away the lettering, and again, to make it consistent with the rest of the definition sections, and just made it fit that formatting that I had pushed together. And then on 53, some more small general editing. I changed dashes to colons to make it all consistent, added some capital letters, and a little bit more.
Can you go back to 43 for a second?
Sure.
Under definitions.
Yep.
You struck the letters, but you didn't replace them with anything.
Yes.
A,
Yep.
B, C, and D. So those bullet lines are just gonna sit there just float there on their own?
Correct. Yep.
And
That's how it is in the rest of the definition sections. It makes it easier to read, and it's
okay.
It's better from a reading standpoint.
Do I have that one?
What are you looking
Gary
for?
doesn't have that
I
document.
guess I'm missing, like, where are we?
Oh,
And I
sorry.
have an extra one of these, so I'm gonna pass it back down.
Okay.
Do you have any of the papers,
I
Gary?
do have the others, yeah.
The
looks
others?
like.
I apologize.
Okay.
Do we,
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
is that, so that's in our zoning ordinance currently? Or, because I don't have all those, unless I have the older version. I don't.
Definitions are on page 36, start on page 36.
Yeah, I just don't
Yeah,
have all that.
the numbering for the pages got a little, it changed from the current just because of how things ended up.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if
going.
you got either an old version or a newer version that I don't have, that, because I don't have any of the, like, the letters in front,
Oh, you don't?
definition section. Maybe, that might be even easier for us to adopt.
It was only in one section.
Yeah. Let me just make sure it's on the site plan. But anyway, yeah, so we can double check that and confirm. I'm just wondering if something got printed out that didn't have, yeah, it's because in my subdivision regs, site plan and zoning ordinance, I don't have those in there currently. Same thing with like the authority on the
So it's-
district, it wasn't showing.
It's in the one online on page 31
Okay.
for assessed property.
I'll ask Joanna to
Okay.
take a look at that online.
I see assessed property, but I don't see you're talking about the definitions, right?
Correct.
You're asking? I have page 31, and number 5 shows definitions.
Oh, you do have it,
Assessed
okay.
property. Yes, right here.
Okay.
And it does have the letters.
Yes, it does.
So at some point that got added probably by mistake.
Yeah, it was only that one section that had that lettering.
But it's not in the other part where it has definitions, which is on page 36 of that document.
Correct, yep.
Okay. The definitions are in a few different places, aren't they?
And then the last page shows again grandfathered being replaced by pre-existing, and then some gentle rewording at the bottom just to fix the verbiage when you take out that grandfathered, because it was used as a verb. And like I said, this isn't all of the changes, but it's a little bit of everything that you see when looking through the entire document. So if you have any comments, please let me know. Specifically on, what you would like to do with the definitions sections, if you'd like to keep them topic specific or put them all together.
I prefer to see them all together.
Okay.
And thank you for changing out grandfathered. That's a big heartache.
Yeah.
It gets brought up a lot.
Did you come across any definitions that existed in 2 different sections? Did we ever leverage any? I wouldn't expect so, but.
I didn't focus on content, but if I'm remembering correctly, I think there are 2 recreation vehicle definitions. But I can check on that and get back to you.
That would be my only concern, but
Yeah.
I like the single section, but we'd have to be clear if we had something defined twice.
And then the only other thing is, I don't think, with the sections that were just housekeeping, cleaning on these, I don't think we're impacting any other areas. I don't think we have anything that refers back to like zoning ordinance, Article 2, Section, C2, or that one is, but, for the accessory dwelling or whatever, so we wouldn't need to fix that either. Okay. So that one's probably the easiest of our list.
Yes. The second one is Article 2, Section C. This one, Jen put some time into. So these are not necessarily suggested changes, but edits to provide clarity. And you guys can give your feedback as you see fit. So starting from the top, permitted uses, it doesn't currently give any permitted uses where it does in some other sections. So this is a general list derived from various other New Hampshire ordinances. It's kind of everything, not necessarily everything that should be in there. That's at your discretion to choose. And this too is not edited for the other formatting changes, just to note. And then breaking everything up into easier reading spacing, changing some of the lettering. Specifically, the setbacks paragraph, she made into a table to make it easier to read. That seemed to be quite a confusing paragraph for people to digest, so she put it into a table and it looks nice and clear now. The items at the bottom with the stars were just items that were better addressed as notes and not included in the table.
Question, and maybe this is gonna end up being for a lawyer at some point. For those lot line adjustments, if they come in for anything, they are newly non-conforming, not pre-existing non-conforming.
I think that was the point. So hypothetically, if there was a current non-existing, non-conforming lot that was pre-existing prior to the date of passage 3894, that's where we fall into this. As soon as that lot changes, so say through a lot line adjustment, that changes the date that that lot is of record, correct? Is that what you're asking?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was what we
And that's why they would have to conform with the current requirements, the 2 acres, the frontage and all. And it's done.
or seek relief from the ZBA.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't, it's just, in looking at this, I'm thinking, yeah, but, ooh, how is that gonna affect them if they want to do anything on their
They'll have
lots
to go,
after this?
they have to go for a variance for anything they want
All
to do.
CBA.
Well, they have to now anyway,
Well,
because
no,
they're
they have to-
non-conforming, but they are,
Correct.
they really fall under the other regulations because
Correct.
they've adjusted their prior non-conforming lot, their pre-existing.
They would fall under the
Lot.
requirements of
Right.
all other lots, so yes.
So they've
well
lost
as
any
on the
benefit
private
they had from being pre-existing,
That's my thought. That's my thought.
which means that anything that they want to do, they're going to have to get a variance for.
Yes. Okay, sorry.
That's okay. I think all the other edits are pretty straightforward down to the accessory dwelling units. And then she added some of the other frontage and setbacks from other towns. The municipalities are hyperlinked, so I'll send that to Joanna and she can send it out to everybody if you want to look at the ordinances of those other towns. Those are put in because there was discussion last meeting about changing some of those.
So basically,
those
for the
setbacks.
6 towns closest to us, we're right in line with lot size for the most part, frontage, front setback is close, side setback is we're a little more restrictive, rear setback, same thing, so. That's really helpful. Let's see, thank you.
Did you guys?
I have a
Sure.
question. For the different municipalities, for all of their districts, are these setbacks consistent? Because we have a village district, and we are considering not having a 50-foot setback, something a little bit more modest.
This is just for the residential agricultural.
Gotcha.
This is the comparables for residential agricultural.
Thank you.
Any
So
other
is there-
questions or comments?
I guess, so the permitted uses, this isn't the same kind of thing where we get back into that discussion of, once you say what the permitted uses are, everything else falls outside of it, but then you defined it, so anything else can be asked for a variance.
Yeah.
Is it a can of worms if, by adding it in versus not having it in, or we kind of have it in already, but just spread around?
Your current ordinance does not list a single permitted use in the residential agricultural district. It has a purpose statement to say that it shall be a zone of low-density residential and agricultural uses. What are low-density and agricultural uses? That's a use, but low-density residential, is that single-family residential, is that two-family residential, is that multifamily residential? All we know is it has to be low density.
I thought we defined.
Open.
It's on page 1.
Yeah, I thought we defined
Right there.
that.
Low density?
Low-density residential?
Or not specifically that term, but.
Well, we didn't say low density on page, or, let's see.
And
Low impact development.
Yeah, like dwelling units, sorry.
And actually, while he's looking for that, going back to the definitions, I don't know if it's intended this way, it's how it is currently, but we have, it's not alphabetical when you get to the Ls. You have low impact, and then, maybe it's because it's LID, maybe it's, they went by the abbreviation instead. But then you go to lot envelope, and then leachable wastes, and then lot of record, and then lot line, so it's kind of, so maybe we could move those back around when it comes to
Yeah, like I said, I hadn't moved anything yet, but,
keeping them all, but just,
yeah, shuffling is, I can definitely do that.
Would we run into any conflicts by putting permitted uses under the zone district? Would that conflict at all with our major and minor? Sorry, my brain fart. What's the thing I'm looking for?
it would conform more with the rest of the, because like, so town center district, we have permitted uses.
Yeah.
Commercial industrial zone, permitted uses, we just don't have that in the biggest zone, which is our agricultural, residential zone. So it seems like it does make sense to make that clear and pull in parts of the other areas like multifamily development such that we.
Sorry, major, minor home occupation. Because I thought we had discussed.
Family daycare.
Yeah, being more specific as far as how to define those.
So I think we put that on the last meeting we're at, the kind of at the long term. So some of those smaller ones that have been kind of one-offs, we kind of kicked to the future. And I think that was one of them.
But that was around daycare stuff, I think, kind of opened that conversation.
Yeah. I guess I'm just trying to, and I'm trying to get it clear in my own head though, if we're saying something is a permitted use in the residential agricultural, does that bypass change of use and then minor home occupation or major home occupation requests?
No, it just says that it's allowed in that area, and then they'd have to.
They'd still have to comply, okay.
And you could reference per section,
Okay.
I think.
I remember that when we had our last big overhaul of our zoning ordinances, that our consultant recommended that we not have permitted uses, that we state what the non-permitted uses were. And I forget what the rationale was for that.
Yeah, that was kind of going back to the argument of if you permit it and it's not in that list, you can go to the zoning for a variance if you
For
say something
permitted
that's not
use.
in it, it's still, it's like the catch-22 kind of thing. I don't know.
And if they come before you with something that you wouldn't want, but it's not on your list, you've already said it can't be there. This isn't there, so I should be able to do it.
Correct. Yeah. I don't know. So it's definitely worth another look and review and thought on that one. But it does make sense that it's in all the other, districts, and we technically don't actually say what's allowed there now. It's very nebulous. That's my word for tonight.
So what you're saying is that most towns have a list of permitted uses?
Even us in our other two zones.
Right.
We just don't specify it in that one zone.
And the list that's here, it's just a kitchen sink
Yeah.
sampler of things that other communities have in this district. It's like a mishmash from several different communities. It's a conversation prompt.
So if you create the list of permitted uses and it's not on that list, does that force them to zoning, or do we add language that says and other such uses or something like that, that kind of gives the board a little more leeway before kicking them to zoning?
So if you do permitted uses and it's not on the list, then yes, you go to zoning for variance. I generally say when you're gonna list list your permitted uses. Don't be overly specific, you know, trying to think of an example. Single-family houses on a 45-degree angle, you know, like, something's, I'm just being
Right.
a little bit extreme for, don't be that oddly specific. Keep it general so that there's some flexibility in that regard, because if you get too specific, then you start excluding things unintentionally. But you can also, if you've got like your definitely, we want this permitted in this district, then you have your maybe, we would let these things be permitted in this district list. Those you can do by special exception and say the following uses are allowed by special exception so long as they meet the following criteria, and then you have to define those criteria. So that gives you a definitely yes, a maybe yes, and then anything that's not on either of those lists is a no. We'll go to the zoning board for a variance.
All right. Any other questions, comments on that section? So obviously that would be so up to the board to, you know, we need to come up with a list, and I'll think about that one, what we want to see on there and how to word it. And have that probably for the next meeting. On to the next one, which I believe is frontage and temporary housing zoning amendments.
Yes. Sorry, I was just checking the dates for our drafts. So going off of the frontage discussion, this is a list pulled together of all the different frontage, I wouldn't call them definitions, but excerpts from all the different districts. So you have your, you know, your residential frontage requirement. Town center doesn't have a frontage requirement. Commercial, industrial, and then multifamily with the 300. Then we have, you know, the length bordering class 5 road or better. And then down here we have the sample definitions from other neighboring towns and, you know, what they use. And then on the back, same setup for temporary housing. You have what is currently in the ordinance and then a couple excerpts from neighboring towns.
When you go to frontage, do the towns usually have to get overly specific on ones if it's a corner lot? Do you add the frontage together, or is it individual, you know?
I think it's up to interpretation. Jen?
I've seen Rochester, that's
is
obviously
it-
different.
Is it what your address is? Road, or your address, that's considered frontage?
That's a really good question.
Thank you.
I'm thinking of an exception to the rule. I know of one community that I've seen that had a line in their frontage definition that said if you're a corner or there's a bend in the road or however it is, you can add up the contiguous amount of frontage on the public right of way, whether it's on a single street or multiple streets. If it's a corner lot, they would let you add up that total.
So around the corner.
Anyway, so otherwise, I think you have to like pick one.
Yeah, because otherwise it seems like it's on a class 5 road or better, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I read it right, so
And you usually pick
currently
one
you
of
pick
these.
one, yeah. Yeah, and we might have it something in subdivision regs, but that's for new lots with curves. I know it talks about arcs and curves and
Yeah.
all that good stuff. Okay.
Yeah, we'd run into problems with small frontage on the class 5 and then the rest of it potentially on a private road, which has access, so then they might be able to theoretically add those together.
Do we define town center in our zoning?
As in, what is the town center?
Right.
There's a map, I believe.
And that's different than?
Yeah, we do have it.
That's different than residential agricultural?
Yeah, we have the residential ag, the next one is the town center district, and then your commercial industrial zone. And then these don't really fall into zones, but,
Right here, page
so yeah.
3.
And it goes by, it gives specific tax maps, lots to reference. It's pretty, kind of difficult to follow. It's a very specific section on 152 and 156.
I know if you go on the Nottingham website, they have a map that is a little bit easier to understand than looking at that, yeah.
And the conservation subdivision regulations only apply to the residential agricultural?
I believe so, yeah.
Does not apply to town center?
I want to double check, but I'm pretty positive that's correct.
Which one did you say?
Open space subdivision,
Oh, it's,
page 22-ish.
open space starts on 22, but it finishes on 23.
Yeah, it's a, proposed on any parcel, parent parcel within agricultural residential zoning districts of 20 or more acres may be considered for the OSD. So that's a S4 applicability. So you're correct. So if we're trying to clear up with some of the frontage, I mean, obviously, there's two pieces here. You know, obviously, we kind of making sure that when we say frontage, we kind of reference the same thing for the 4 areas that it's in now. But when we talk about the broader question, with a lot of stuff going to zoning because of frontage on a Class 5 road, I don't know if it was always intended that way, to kind of make sure that it's just reviewed further because of the complexity of the issue, or if it's just a matter of no single one board wants to really take ownership of it, or responsibility for it. How do other, or maybe you address it here, but how do other towns really address the private roads? Do they address them differently for subdivisions and such, and still make it a process where obviously, you know, when we see it, some of them, you know, the roads aren't even built to what the plan was originally?
Yeah, so if you have your land use book in front of you,
Yep.
674-41, I don't know what page it's on. But last Friday, I went to a workshop and they were talking about it. And if you look at provision D,
Page 443.
for private roads, I believe what this is saying is that you can, if you look at 1, it says the local governing body, after review and comment by the planning board, has voted to authorize the issuance of building permits for the erection of buildings on said private roads or portion thereof. So you guys have those subdivision, in your subdivision regulations, you have roadway design standards. I don't think it would be out of the question, from what this is saying and from what I'm understanding, for you to work with the select board to figure out, you know, what private roads meet those standards and designate them as buildable. In which case, am I getting that right?
I think so. We're getting into like new territory.
Yeah. And in that case, I think they can go directly to the ZBA for a permit. Or not the ZBA, I'm sorry, the select board.
It has to be a warrant article, right? To be accepted,
That, I'm not
road to
sure.
be accepted by the town as,
So it wouldn't,
Legislative body, yes.
right?
it wouldn't be accepted, it wouldn't be a public road though, it would be it would still be a private road, it would just be deemed buildable
Oh,
by the.
deemed
Yeah,
acceptable.
yeah,
But legislative body is,
the select board, right? Or, governing body.
is it governing body?
Yeah.
The local governing body after review and comment by the planning board. So I think,
Is that the select board?
I think here, that's the
I
the
think
select
they
board
would-
for.
they-
Okay, so I'll look into that more,
Jurisdiction.
just to make sure.
She's reading right here.
So it's possible that it'd be an in-between answer, so we would be able to potentially provide some relief for certain areas. Still have others that need some assistance.
Yeah, I'll definitely look into that more and reach out, and see if I can confirm that answer.
And I guess what determines it became even like a private road versus, you know, is a right of way the same thing as a private road? Even though right of way, can a right of way be dissolved at any time or pretty easily? Not easily necessarily, but by the landowner?
Well, they're all right-of-ways are different, right? So if it's just an easement, then it's just an easement. If it's a private road, it's still technically, I mean, it's a right-of-way. All roads are right-of-ways. I think it.
This is why we've had difficulty with it.
Yeah.
It's because, like you said, you have some that are true right-of-ways, some that are easements that aren't.
And some that are just paper roads.
Right,
Right.
yeah, what's what, really?
I think that's part of the reason we've made it not intentionally a bit more difficult for people, but necessarily
Right.
that it takes a little more review so that we can kind of try to take some of these things that are maybe 50, 60, 80 years old, whatever, and bring them to current, not necessarily standards, but see where they actually really are,
Right. So
that part of it then.
the intent of that law is to prevent scattered and premature development, but if these roads are built to the town standard, then they're functioning as true roads. So, I think, does that
Right,
answer
just
your
under private
question?
ownership.
Right.
Correct. Okay.
Which I wonder if we have any of those.
That are built to the standard?
Right. Be interesting to know.
That's the next question, yeah.
That's that part. And temporary housing was the next.
Yep. So going off of our other discussion on temporary housing, current language in the ordinance, Article 4 and Article 6. Motorhomes, travel trailers, and then you have the defined term for travel trailer, recreational vehicle. So, and then you have your sample definition. So, you guys had discussed possibly creating a permitting process to have a clock start, and then having a time limit on that to make it truly temporary, or possibly occupancy permitted. I didn't see that. Oh, I guess in Deerfield, they have the 60-day clock. And then in Lee, it was 2 weeks. With other stipulations.
Okay, so there's some good options there for two towns that probably see this frequently enough, and probably a blend of the two.
Were these the only two that, out of all of the ones you've been looking at, that had definitions on this?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yes. As you were looking for sample definitions for us, were these the only two towns, or did Raymond or any of the others, or did you not look? Happen to look?
Jen put in the legwork for the temporary housing, and I believe these,
I did the surrounding communities, so
Okay.
checked all of the surrounding, and these were the only two that had something specific in the surrounding.
Okay, that's what I was
I know
wondering.
there are others elsewhere in New Hampshire that have something.
Okay, I wondered that, if that was the case, because on so much else that you provided us, we've had multiples, and just these two, I'm like, they're the only two? Okay, so that is the case. Thank you. And thank you for doing this legwork. It's very helpful.
And obviously, these two specifically mention, recreational vehicles or travel trailers. I can't think of any other specific example other than tiny homes, which I don't know how you would potentially add that in. I know there's, I think, the legislative committee that's working on those now, so we may see something come from the state for guidance on that in the near future.
The second page that define terms, travel trailer, recreational vehicle, has some qualification there that could include.
Oh yeah, good point, yep.
That wouldn't be inclusive of like a tiny home built on an actual foundation.
Anybody else have any questions or comments on that one? So I think that was, this kind of encompasses the majority of what we hope to potentially get through this year and onto the warrant, or onto the ballot for warrant articles. So some of it easier, housekeeping. Some of it a little bit different, and some of it clean up to try to help us give more guidance to our building inspector, code enforcer, and give him something to stand on if he has to enforce some of these items.
do you guys have any initial thoughts on those timeframes so that we can start putting language together?
Timeframes on the temporary housing?
Yeah. You have Deerfield with the 60 days
Oh, those, yeah.
and 30-day extension, and then you have Lee with the 2 weeks.
I like the Deerfield one.
The
I think
Deerfield
it's-
one?
Yeah.
I was gonna say the same thing, and I think where most people would be using this type of temporary housing as they're building or making
Renovations.
renovations and stuff, that this seems reasonable. 2 weeks would be kind of like,
Yeah.
you don't really have time for doing that.
Or a child coming home,
Right.
looking for housing, needs a
Right.
place to stay.
Yes.
And the other thing I like about Deerfields is it's a total. So, the 2 weeks, you could potentially just have new ones every 2 weeks if you don't put a specific time frame or max on it.
Right.
And then obviously the max, limiting the number that can be on a lot at once too. You could add some language, we could add language in there too about, or like they do, Deerfield, they have Deerfield Board of Health, we would have something probably with the building inspector, but basically it's just make sure it's sanitary. Facilities they're being disposed of properly.
Do we have time limits on building permits?
Year, I think,
A year?
pretty sure.
Yeah, I think they expire after a year. Is that standard or?
So
Okay.
That's the deal.
Okay.
Well, renewable, I think. I thought it was a year. That's what I.
That sounds right to me.
And then
Yeah,
the only other thing is there's nothing in the Deerfield one, necessarily says it has to be removed, it just says you can't live in it for more than 60 days.
Mm-hmm. I think that's also if you have a camper parked in your driveway. There's no reason you should not have it on your property, right?
Correct.
I do like having that specific extension following approval of the permit. I just think 30 days might be too short. I think at that point, with the intent to actually build on the property, I think we could consider an even longer period of time, because
Yeah, they have 60, but then you can get a 30-day extension. Or are you saying the 30-day extension might be too short?
because at that point, I mean, as a town, we're more confident that there are people that are actually looking to occupy a dwelling on that property, and it's gonna take potentially more than 30 days for them to actually have a habitable residence.
But the Deerfield version here doesn't say that you only get one 30-day extension.
Right?
It just says after 60 days, you have to get it.
Right, the building permit just needs it, or the building inspector needs it, okay.
Okay, I was just reading it as a 30-day extension beyond
Yeah.
this period.
That's actually, so the two interpretations is a good point that we would want to clarify that and make sure we're definitive on it either way. Either that we are given a true max.
So then I would say
That I would-
30-day extensions are, and that way, every 30 days, they could go back to get.
Right,
Sure.
with no more than, what, 6 months?
6 months should be maximum, really.
Yeah, I guess we would want to think about that and make sure we're understanding, like, you know, what's the requirement of 30 days? That just they ask for it and everyone's granted, because there's no guidance as to the building inspector as to why they need the additional 30 days, like in the example of they're building a home, they're rebuilding a home after a fire or something like that.
Someone's doing all the work themselves.
Correct.
Like, yeah.
Well, and then you mentioned the fire, so there are I'll call it a trailer, so it's temporary housing that actually can be parked, hooked up to all the electric and the sewage. And it's made to do that, so it's a little different situation than a camper. So that's another situation that could maybe be considered longer if you had a fire and it took time to establish your insurance and everything you needed to rebuild. Yeah, should be some kind of consideration for that too.
So as of right now, from this discussion, 60 days with a 30-day extension up to 6 months. Does that seem to,
Up for a total of 6 months?
for a total 6 months, is that what I'm
Occupancy?
hearing?
And I would say with 60-day, with 30-day extensions as needed, not to exceed 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
6 months in total.
And then obviously, if they were gonna be going beyond that, they would need to go before the Board of Selectmen or somebody like that, right?
With the ZBA.
Or the ZBA.
Zoning, so yeah.
And I'm sure in extenuating circumstances, they wouldn't have a problem figuring something out with that.
Right.
The only thing I don't like about that is, I think we're taking the discretion away from the building inspector. What I think he's looking for is a way of controlling how long people are living in temporary housing. And by saying it's 60 days with as many 30-day extensions as you want to do, how can he say no to somebody? When does he get to say no? When,
But we could put in at the discretion of the building inspector.
But I think that gets probably risky because it's just saying, well, it's his discretion, he can say yes, no, without any true guidance. So I think that's what we're talking
How
about.
about showing need? If they're showing need or demonstrate as the need demonstrates, having a extension?
I think Buzz brings up a good point around just the feasibility of enforcement.
Mhm.
If the first time frame is 60 days, if there's no permit, that's a trigger for the building inspector to go visit the property, see what's happening. If there is a permit, maybe there, rather than the 30 days, we just make it a 6-month period. Just a blanket 6-month period if a building permit has been issued. Because then you don't have otherwise the building inspector is going around to different.
Oh, you're saying if a building permit, not a temporary housing permit, but a building permit has been issued, so like, they give them,
Oh, wait.
to cover the scenario of like.
I might have been misreading that, actually.
Well, there's a building permit.
Oh,
which would
obtaining
cover-
a permit from the building, sorry. I was thinking that this was,
What are we allowing temporary housing for?
sorry.
What's the purpose for temporary housing?
I think it's, right now, it's so the purpose of looking at this and adding,
No,
Language was
if
to
you're
go
gonna
back
put
and
temporary
change it.
housing on your property, what's your reason for doing it?
So it seems to me it'd be for alleviating, maybe a number of people that you need to house, and it's temporary. But we're also talking about a construction thing, so, too, that's another part of it.
Yeah.
Or fire, if you
That's
had a
a-
fire, then you need to have temporary housing while your home gets cleaned up and rebuilt.
so most dramatic would be someone just currently lives here, they've had some kind of event in their home that makes it non-occupiable for a period of time, but they want to still reside here, so like a fire. That would be one. Another one would be an event, so someone has like a family gathering, a wedding, like that, and a bunch of people in town. Someone comes up in a trailer and they want to stay there for a couple weeks. People that own, say, land here but don't have a house, so maybe they have a waterfront parcel that doesn't have a land on it, but they want to come up here in the summer. So they bring up a camper and they live in it for, through the summer months, July through, June through July, August, would be another scenario. Other scenarios are just, people potentially letting someone just live on their land until they, like, maybe they sell their home and, and don't have another home yet. So they live in a camper for a period of time.
Do we want people bringing a camper onto a lot in Nottingham and staying here for the summer? I mean, I've got a couple of those campers still down behind my house that have been there for 20 years.
And not removing, you mean?
Right.
And not having that be as part of the language in here, is that?
Where's the junkyard ordinance? Are we gonna do that? Just kidding.
I say, don't they have to be removed?
Not necessarily, that's what we're talking about. So how do you determine, how do you specify that? So say it's somebody's own personal recreational vehicle, and part of the year, they let their family fly up from another state and live in it for a month.
Like
But it's still gonna be on their property all year round.
From my point of view, I think that
Park there.
that we ought to have a 30-day permit, period, and then everything else is a special exception. And anything beyond that has to be somehow handled as a special exception.
Yeah.
So that covers everything. That covers a housing problem. If you're building a house and you attain a building permit in that time, and you need to stay in longer, then that can be arranged through the building inspector. I don't know exactly how to word that, but that's what I don't think we ought to have the extensions on this over and over again.
Without some kind of language to help.
And the more language you put in, the more complicated it's gonna get. So somehow, the regulation should say that temporary vehicles, motorhomes, and travel trailers can only be lived in for up to 30 days by permit. with a start date and an end date.
And then, like, and then specify some special exceptions, like special exceptions.
If it's in our zoning, then in order to get around that, you'd have to go before either the ZBA or the selectmen, I would think, to get some sort of an exception beyond the 30 days.
Unless we build them in. So I'm saying we could say special exceptions would be if building permit is in place to change the home or something like that. So up to 6 months, if a building permit is in place in the event of a fire, and I don't know. So I think we could add a couple of special exceptions where we give the extra length, and after that, it would, if it's not, doesn't meet it, then it's ZBA.
What do you think?
I think it's very similar to what we had before, it's just a shorter time frame. Is what you're asking for, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't matter what I think, it's what you guys think.
No, what I was trying to take out, though, is if you say, 30 days or 60 days, and then 30-day extensions may be granted by the building inspector's whim, basically, is what you're saying. What we would be saying. So I feel like that's not very enforceable or opens a lot of problems for the town. Because if the building inspector tries to say no, say, well, what's your grounds? And he's, well, because this, then they say, well, I'm suing you. So,
I mean, he has to deem it livable.
Right.
It can't present a health risk or any hazard, so he does have that responsibility.
But if it's livable and everything else, then people just want to keep saying, well, you effectively make it 6 months if we make that the max.
Why wouldn't you want to allow that?
That's what I'm asking. I guess that's what we're trying to figure out is what's the difference of saying initial 30 days versus 6 months? Is that he's just checking it every 30 days instead to make sure it still continues to be livable? Yeah.
To me, that's the biggest thing, is making sure it's habitable, because if somebody owns an RV and wants to keep it in their yard and let their family come and stay with them during the summertime, who are we to say they can't do that? They're paying the taxes on the property, and as long as it's meets all of the boundary setbacks and stuff like that, and they're not polluting the water or the land, then I don't see why we should have any say in it.
Yeah, I think adding a time frame to it is good, though, so you don't have it potentially become a second residence that unintentionally.
Exactly, but I didn't say that.
Yeah, no, I know.
I was just saying, if you have it and you want your family coming from California or Florida to get away from the heat for the summer or whatever.
Do we care if people end up renting it out and leveraging this?
Well, then they're using it as like an Airbnb type thing, and that's not what this is.
But do we have any way of not allowing that to happen?
I don't think we do, but again, if people are doing, still say it's, they're paying taxes on it, it's.
Well, I guess what I'm getting to now is the neighbors at this point.
Right.
So if I lived on the lake and I parked a trailer there, then to Buzz's point, if it's, like, I don't know what the right time frame is. And I agree with you in general, being able to leverage the property, but I think it's worth the discussion.
I don't know how we can regulate everything to prevent everything from happening. I really don't. I think in some ways we have to hope that homeowners will use their common sense, and when they're not and they're creating noise or air pollution or whatever like that, then authorities get involved, and then they're the ones who could say, look, this is unacceptable, this is a residential neighborhood and you're making it into, a downtown city bar type thing. That would be one way of having that handled, but I don't see how we can regulate everything.
Yeah, and so it is a good point. The intent of this initially was that right now we have kind of temporary housing defined a little bit, but not really. So there's no enforceability truly right now for this. So this can occur right now. There's no way to really do anything about it. So it would be to at least help address some of it, but it's probably not gonna fix everything. He said if someone wants to add one of these and rent it, that's a thing now. It is, but,
We don't have to get it perfect either.
yeah.
If things go off the rails,
And that might be something that's addressed later on, because we did discuss, potentially talking about Airbnbs and VRBO and short-term rentals, at some point. Right now, it's happened, probably occurs in town, but hasn't become problematic, but as a planning board, to start thinking about it and talking about it is probably a good idea.
But I also do like the wording Lee has in one sense, because they mentioned that storing the recreation vehicle, and then they 2 weeks, I think, is not enough time, but they use that word, storing the vehicle on the property versus, keeping it there for eternity, you know what I mean?
Right,
So-
in number 3?
Right, so they're using that, and then that maybe combined with the 60-day kind of makes sense to me.
I also like it in Deerfields, where at the very end of theirs, it says no more than one recreational vehicle may be used for temporary residence. Then it also mentions use shall be in conformance with the regulations, the DFO board held, and in fact, it's time of placement. So I think they're also saying it. You've got that there, and these are the regulations, it has to meet that now, regardless of how long they've had it there, to go back to Buzz's concern.
Yeah, well, placement, we'd probably want to get rid of, I'd say a time of permit instead of placement, because if we're not going to require that they've removed them every time, that they could potentially just stay there and hooked up, but just not lived in, then, 10 years from that point, like, well, I placed that 10 years ago, and it conformed to whatever rules were then for health, and it doesn't have to conform to today's health standards. So I'd say a time of permit would probably be a better word there. Because the permit would be each year they'd have to get a new one.
Correct.
Can you what little edit did you just make, just so that I know to reflect it in my draft?
Under Deerfield, at the very bottom,
Okay.
the very last word, permit instead of placement.
And then a yearly permit. Or,
Yeah, we'd want to make a permit process with that, which we'll
6
have to talk to
months.
the select board to make sure they're okay, which I think they've initially indicated that they would be.
Okay.
thank you for all this work.
Yeah. I'll work with Jen to draft up some language, and then I'll also reach out to Dale and just make sure that this is encompassing the needs that he's seeing.
Perfect.
Good idea.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, we want to give him enough tools so he can do his job, and not tie his hands too much on that one.
do we know if he's enforced similar things in other?
I know
places?
I don't know about the prior towns that he's worked in, but I know he's had an issue with there not being a temporary definition.
Oh, yeah. He brought
There's
that up.
Yeah.
He worked in Northwood before, but
Right.
I don't think you did find it
That's
in
right.
Northwood, so. All right. Did you put this
Anything
together?
else?
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I just want to make sure I have all your input on everything to keep moving forward.
I think it's great, thank you.
Yeah, so I think as a board, for the next discussion, I think we'll have to really, each of us think about permitted uses side, and we can always ask our legal if there's if we're open, any problems for ourselves if we put permitted uses in, but by the fact that it's in our other zones, it probably makes sense to do so. The other big item would be the setbacks. Frontage length, which is in there. And obviously a lot on the frontage to discuss a little bit more as a board. And then, Steph, did you put this together, the planning and zoning, the kind of the updates as to what's moving through the House and the
I did not.
Senate? So in our packets, everybody should have what I believe are some items that are of interest to the planning and zoning that are going through the New Hampshire House and Senate. So more time for zoning board hearings, where it was amended, I believe, gives the zoning, I think these were all actually already passed, gives the zoning board of adjustment 45 days rather than 30 to hold a public hearing after an appeal is filed, so it gives them a little more time on that one. Planning board may shorten time for filing, allows us in our rules of procedure to shorten the 21-day minimum period that an applicant must file an application prior to the meeting, in which it will be considered for acceptance. Committee to study tiny houses, so there's a committee for that established. City planning board members that may hold other offices, so we're a town, so that doesn't affect us. But it does clarify again for that. Commission to study barriers to increase land development. Kind of read the definitions on that one, and let's see. So, a couple of important things that have gone through, amended the RSA's this year. All right, so last that we have on tonight's agenda would be public comment. Nobody here. Board and selectmen, staff board member updates. I'll start with, on my right, Mr. Davies.
I am all set.
Joe, Anna, Steph, and I attended the Land Use Law Conference on Saturday. It's at the Holiday Inn in Concord. If you should happen to go to something there, make sure you leave ample time to find parking, because that was not an easy thing to do. Very much not, so not. And took a few notes, found it kind of interesting, the first part of it, not so interesting, the second part of it. That Joanna and I will write up something with staff to present at the next meeting.
Yeah. Did they change the format? Did they kind of make it no longer like pick and choose?
Well, what they did was, it was one big room for ZBA and planning for the initial welcome and all of the overview stuff. And then they took a break and put up a temporary divider between the two. So ZBA was on one side, planning on the other. And that's all she wrote.
Thank you. Ms. Mooney?
I just brought a picture along of a small world begonia, which is that orchid that was under discussion on South Summer Street. It really doesn't look like much, but it's rather special. So I'll leave it here if you want to take a closer look.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry, we're going to update you.
Just two things. I just wanted to bring it up because we had talked about it in the past. Road safety audit. We never took that anywhere last time. I think it was a year ago that it was available. But the deadline's December 1st, if that's something that's going to be considered again. That's the DOT safety audit. We had talked about 152 doing that, so I don't know if it's too late or if it's even a want anymore, but I had to bring it up.
Doesn't the select board have to do that?
Well, I'm pretty sure they have to okay it, yes.
They had to send a letter. Wasn't it a letter had to come from them? And Dirk had sent a request for a letter or something like that, and nothing happened. But I'm pretty sure it has to go as a letter.
Would you mind, if you can, if you mind just emailing Dirk a very short email, just let him know that what that is and what the deadline is, and see if you wanted to remind the selectmen.
Sure.
If there was a prior request that does come up. Let them know about it. Thank you.
Oh, the other thing was that, so there's a statewide commissioner meeting. I'm trying to clear my schedule for next week to do that. That's speaker is going to be there on economic development. And it's, I guess, a chance to maybe just connect with other commissioners, so we'll see how that, hopefully I can make it to that one.
Thank you.
Nothing for me.
Jen, anything from out there? No? All right, that's it for that. We have one set of minutes in front of us, September 25th, 2019. I know there was a few edits that went through back to Joanna that have been added, I believe.
All right. Mr. Chair, I move we approve the minutes for September 25th, 2019 as amended.
Second.
Oh, you can get it, Gary.
Motion by Teresa, second by Gary, to approve the minutes of September 25th, 2019 as amended. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 6-0. Nothing else on the agenda? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody, for tonight.
Who seconded the adjourn?
Joe.
Joe?
Thanks
Yes.
for running the show, Ed.
Oh, I have 8:50.
I did. I wanted all of them.
Okay.
I'm just curious.
Yep.
So will you two, oh, we have to turn this off.
Thank you.
Joanna.
How to do that?
We should put it together.
Hit the switch.
Looks like it might be excerpted from Municipal Association.
Oh. Thanks.
Yep.
Righty.
Do you want anything out of this?
No, I got everything, thanks.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks.